You get the sense that he's happy with the result. The camera then pans to Stormzy's table, showing a mob of friends celebrating. There's no sign of the man himself, but you can see flips, #MurkyPresident, and probably the longest-serving member of the team, jumping up and down like he's scored a worldie. You can see Michael Dapper screaming. You can see Tobe, his manager and good friend from Thornton Heath, slapping the back of someone in the centre of the picture. And then that someone begins to move. It's a man with his head in his hands. Stormzy is wearing a black t-shirt and tracksuit trousers, possibly the same ones he'll wear during his performance later that night. He gets up and begins to walk away from the table, pushed on by his team, but runs straight into Fraser T. Smith, the producer he worked with on the album for over 10 months. They gave each other a hug. Maybe words are said, but you can't really tell. He's in a little bit of a daze, and suddenly you start to notice the song Blinded by Your Grace, Part 2. It's playing as he walks towards the stage and up the steps. It's the moment in the song when the chorus fades and the uplifting bridge breaks through. It's almost perfectly timed. Said a prayer this morning, I prayed I would find the way. Sounds out amid the clapping as Stormzy walks forward, hands clasped together, eyes looking ahead. It's not the first time someone's won Album of the Year at the Brits, and it won't be the last. For some people, it's not a particularly special moment at all. For others, it really is. What does it mean? Why does it matter to me? Why does it matter at all? That's really what this book is about. I started to write in 2012 with the aim of one day making a living from writing. Looking back, I was embarking on a journey with no firm foundations or solid examples for my unrealistic ambitions. There were, back then, no contemporary Black British writers I wanted to emulate, no figure of a catalogue of work I wanted to mimic. But as much as I was looking for someone who represented me, the lack of anyone was in some ways an incentive to keep trying. 6 years later, and I'm writing these words. In a sense, I'm not really supposed to be. Like the subject of this book, I am from a troubled part of southeast London. At school, I was never touted for greatness and was expelled when I was 13. I joined a pupil referral unit where I became friends with gang members, victims of abuse, and an array of children who had been cast out of mainstream education. Drama and danger were never strangers. I spent a lot of time back then writing without knowing why I was doing it or for whom. I thought I had potential, but potential can be an empty word with no parameters. A teacher once told me that if I was ever stabbed, I should keep the knife inside my body rather than remove it to prevent myself from dying. I was never violent, but I remember how simply I absorbed that lesson. A young Black person with no expectations of any type of meaningful future, anticipating a meaningless death. I got my GCSEs, however, and started my A-levels, though I still had no real idea of where I was going. Getting kicked out of school had made me look at life differently. There is a universal African diaspora truth that I eventually realized. As a Black person, you have to work twice as hard. I had made life even harder for myself by hitting rock bottom at a young age. I think back on growing up and I feel troubled by the mentality we all had, the lack of hope. We settled for less and filled the void of what if with other ideas. Any deviation from that mindset prompted strange responses. The stigma would persist until someone actually did something. But what could we do? Being born and existing as a Ghanaian in a Eurocentric society meant being on the outside. At school, I was never taught about Black British history, but I started to teach myself, gaining an understanding of those who worked to fight against discrimination and racist systems. I had a sense that it could be a first step in challenging my worldview and that of my peers, a way to make sense of the present by acknowledging the past. My knowledge of contemporary Black Britishness came through television and music. The Lenny Henry Show, groups like Cleopatra, Big Brothers, Mystique, and So Solid Crew. Artists like Craig David, Miss Dynamite, and Estelle.